Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Town of Milton Select Board. Tonight in attendance are members Vice Chair Roxanne Musto, Secretary John Cohane, and Member Zoll and Member Bradley will be joining by Zoom. Good evening. I'd ask that everyone please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we move to item number 3, which is public comment, this week, this town saw the tragic loss of a vital and vibrant member, the wife of one of the members of our planning board, Sean Fahey. His wife, Janice, passed away after a courageous battle with cancer. And anyone who was in this town this week saw the immense outpouring of love and humanity for Sean, for his son Michael, their daughters Megan, Kate, and Kara. And no child should ever have to lose a parent, and no one should have to leave this earth in such a way that is so tough and so painful. But for each of them, and I said this to Sean at the wake, the pride and love that existed amongst everyone, both at the wake and the funeral on Saturday, is truly a credit to this woman's life. And so I'd like to ask everyone to please join us in a moment of silence for the Fahey family, but most importantly, for the life of Janice Fahey. Thank you very much. Item number 3 is public comment. I see no one in the massive crowds here at the council meeting tonight. And I don't think I see anyone online. So, you're going to be happy, Mr. Zoll. We may be done by 8 o'clock. Mr. Zoll has a hard stop at 8 o'clock. I want to move to item...
That would work great for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Item 4, which is questions for the school building committee regarding the new school project. As Mr. Milano talked about at the last meeting, we're in the process of going through the MSBA process, which hopefully will be a positive outcome for our community and for our public school system. So what I'd like to try to do is if any of the members have any questions that they would like addressed regarding this, I don't think that either the school administration or the school committee is ready yet to come to us with a proposal above and beyond gaining MSBA approval. But if anyone has questions that they would like to have addressed or would like to send through Mr. Milano to the superintendent or to Chair Carroll, now's the time to do it. And I see Ms. Bradley has her hand up. Is that a hand? I see a hand.
I see a hand. Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm not there. I have 2 sick people in my home, and it requires me to be here. So I just want to make sure that when something comes before the school committee around the implementation of a new school and the cost thereof, whether or not the school building committee funds it, we do not have any questions. And so this is an opportunity for our committee to put forth questions to the select board. It's not even the select board, it's the school building committee, which is based under a town meeting member. So I just want to make sure that nobody has any questions, because let's say we don't get any of this school building committee money, I don't want there to be 900 questions as to why we can't do this. So your questions right now need to come forward so that the school building committee, that the town meeting members actually put forward, start to do work on that. And I just don't want this to be delayed another 5 years. So if none of our fellow representatives have questions, that's amazing. But I don't want to hear it when Sean O'Rourke comes back in 6 months and we didn't get the SBC money and all the other things. I don't want to hear it. So today's your day, and you have plenty of notice. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. So you're referring to us as a committee. I believe you're referring to us as our board questions for the committees, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair,
All
that
right,
is
I got it.
correct.
I got
The
it.
last time that the school building committee came before us, our committee, there are many members, multiple members, who said that they had questions about things. And those questions were never fully answered. I agree. So today's the day. Put your questions on the table. Let's move forward because we need a new school. So when the school building committee comes back in 6 months and you say to them, I have questions, I want it on the record today that we had ample opportunity to ask every question of the school building committee, and our committee, our select board committee, has chosen not to say anything. That's what I want.
Thank you. I don't think, anyone else? Questions? Ms. Musto,
Well, go ahead, John,
Go ahead,
first.
John. Mr. Cohen.
Mr. Green.
My understanding was that it was, what questions do we have in order to put the debt exclusion on the ballot? That's the question. Is that correct, Aaron?
Okay, so first of all, if we're going to use last names,
I know,
it's Ms. Bradley.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms.
It's
Bradley.
okay. It's okay. There seems to be some confusion around how we address people at certain times. So I'm fine with, if you want to call me Aaron, then I'm going to call you John. So moving forward, yes. If we don't get any funding from the state of Massachusetts to fund a new school, and we are moving forward with the school building committee's recommendations, what are the questions that the select board has to them so that we can vote, whether in favor or not? However you want to vote is how you want to vote. But however you want to vote, all your questions should be answered. That's what I'm trying to get to, because what ends up happening, John, is that we do not actually ask the questions. And that has been something that has been on our radar now since July. It came up in August, it came up in September. That's why we're doing this again today. So if you have questions about a new building, today's the day to ask them. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is that you guys are going to get a proposal and you're going to say, I have 9 million questions, and then we're not going to get anywhere. So I just wanted today to be a day of questions so that Sean, his committee, the committee that was appointed by the town meeting members, can do their work and try and find out some answers for those questions that are impeding a decision from many members of our select board.
Thank you.
Again,
Go ahead, Mr. Cohen.
Again, can I clarify, Ms. Bradley? These are questions to the school building committee, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Mrs. Zoll, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I know Ms. Musto had her hand up before me. I don't have a way of
She just pointed to you.
being
so
in the
go
room,
ahead.
so if she'd like to go first, that's
pointed-
fine.
She pointed to your yellow hand in the air, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So just, I really don't think that we need to drag this on too long. There was a list of questions that Ms. Musto actually had ready to go I think that might have been in July when we initially, and to Mr. Cohen's point, Our job is really to just make sure that the citizens have the information that they need to make choice. Our job is not to, fund this or not fund this. Our job is to put this to the people of Milton. So we've had several months now of opportunities to understand the plan, the number, and this should be our opportunity to just come forward with a straightforward list. Some of the questions I know we've heard some answers to before, but I think let's put them all down on paper. But I think one thing that we should not be doing is looking at alternatives, because the town has decided, obviously the Commonwealth has decided, that we have an overcrowding situation. We need a new school. This committee has worked for 6 years to present an opportunity. So our job is not in the next 10 minutes to come up with 5 different plans. It's to come up with the specific questions that we want to ask the school building committee to respond to, so that we can feel confident when voters go to the polls in April or whenever we get this on the ballot, that they are informed. And of course, the school building committee has also offered to have informational sessions. I'm sure that offer would still stand once it's approved for the ballot and before it goes on the ballot. So I think, just to clarify, I think a little bit from Mr. Cohen, that is my understanding. And for the record, I have no questions. I feel very well informed about what's happened here, and I feel that we have enough information to present this to the voters as is. But I welcome my colleagues on the select board to ask their clarifying questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Ms. Musto.
Thank you. So I want to preface this by saying the questions that I have are related to this project. So if it goes in the fundings with MSBA, my understanding is it may be a different project. And so I think I would reserve the right, I think we all should, to ask questions if it becomes a different project than what we have here on the table. And as far as the questions, I will go through my questions. I have quite a few. And they're just to gain better knowledge of the project. And for the residents too. And with that being said, I think I'll start saying what they are. But sometimes when you get answers to questions, to my colleagues, I just want to say that sometimes you get answers to questions and they prompt additional questions from the answers you get. So I would want to make sure that when we get answers to some of these questions, if we had a follow-up, that we would be able to ask that follow-up, because sometimes that does require a follow-up. So with that being said, I'm going to read you some of the questions that I thought of as I was thinking about this topic. So one of them is a breakdown of the cost of the utilities per year for each building, because we're talking about 2 different buildings. So I would like to know what that would be. Cost of implementing the new energy codes per each building. What amount of rebates are we factoring in over time? And have these rebates, or could these rebates change over time? For instance, a loss of an energy program, different energy programs that may become available or may be lost. What would that mean? What are the staffing costs for each building? What is the square foot price for each fully furnished building? So not just building the building, but putting all of the equipment in each of these buildings. So a breakout, again, of each of those. What is the square footage of Pierce School versus the new school? And again, some of these questions and answers are probably readily available, but it would be great to just have them answered in a running list. It would be really helpful. What is the square foot price for each fully furnished building? Why is the addition at the proposed middle school auditorium smaller than that one at Pierce? Will it accommodate a large number of students for a student assembly, for instance? I know we have Pierce players and different things, so I'm just wondering how that would work. How many people does the auditorium hold now at Pierce, and how many would this one hold? Square footage of Pierce Auditorium versus the new one. Do you have any estimated costs for stormwater management for this project? My understanding is that that could be a significant cost, given the grade of the land. I've also understood that there may be a retaining wall proposed at this site, so I'd like more information on the height of it, the length of it, and what materials are going to be used on that wall. What's the estimated cost of the wall, including that engineering and design? Because a wall like that you probably would have to have professionally designed, obviously, and engineered. What type of masonry products will be used on this new building? I know that when I was around when they did the other buildings, and on some of the buildings they had issues because there's different types of products, whether you use concrete masonry units versus like a water-struck brick like Tucker School has. They had water issues at the high school with water coming in shortly after, and that had to be repaired. Will solar panels be used on the roof? What type of roof system and what type of roof system will they use, and what will the warranty be on that? I know that Milton High had problems with their roof, and I believe the contractor had to come out and repair those. How many trees will be removed? Many of those trees are mature, and how many will be replaced? What is the cost of landscaping as well as screening for the neighbors and the abutters? And I know that there are two other things here. One is, I know one of my colleagues said, this is the plan, there's no, they shouldn't be necessarily looking at all these different plans, but I think that there should be looking at what if, in the worst case scenario, that this goes to a vote, whether it's with MSBA funding or not, do we have a plan B ready to go to people? And then this is more for, I guess, Nick and the town. Like, what's a full picture of the outstanding commitments that we have in terms of costs altogether? Because I know we're going to be talking about the finance committee report. So we want to have a better understanding of what's going on with the town side of the finances. But as far as my questions, those are the questions I have now. As I said, some of these answers that we get back, they may require a follow-up question, and I think we should be allowed to do that if we have a follow-up related to the questions that we asked. Thank you.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do we want to have Mr. Milano send these to Mr. O'Rourke?
Sure.
I mean,
I have no problem.
I just.
There were a lot
think
of them.
that's- I'll come right back, Mrs. Old. I just wanted to, I think we should probably forward these to him and let him
Yeah, I can give
take
it
a dive at them. Before I comment, go ahead, Mrs. Old.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. You read my mind. That was one thought that I had, was if Ms. Musto has all of these questions written down, it'd be very helpful, I think, to the committee for her to send them or send them to Nick so he can send them through. My overarching concern at this point with all of these questions is not the questions themselves. It's the school building committee's ability to answer the questions, as they are out of funding, and we don't have a town meeting scheduled until February. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about how do we expect a committee that is unfunded to respond to some of these questions. And I believe, Ms. Musdo, you're right in that some of these questions can be answered by simply looking at the proposal and doing math on square footage and things like that. Other things like the staffing question have been answered in a public setting before. And it's important to note that the staffing numbers at the new school will also then sort of draw down on staffing numbers at the other schools, because 5th grades will be moved, 6th grades will be moved, so that the number of teachers actually doesn't change dramatically. But it's a fair question, and I just want to make sure that we're empowering the committee to answer the questions to the select board satisfaction, because right now they're out of funding, and there's no path for them to get more resources in so that they can do the answers. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I just want to follow up on one comment to Mr. Milano. I don't believe they're out of funding as of yet, are they?
I'd have to double check, but I think they've identified what they expect to spend on design to this point, and have planned to draw that all down. And the design will only take it to a certain point, at which point the funding would be exhausted. So I think to Mr. Zoll's point, some of these may be future design decisions rather than now design decisions, but we can always have Sean respond accordingly and go through the list.
I think a lot of these questions, they should have already done this work. They should be able to answer these. We just need to answer. I think that a lot of us, they should already be able to answer from my knowledge of where they're at. So, Ms. Musto, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
And then,
That's a great point. I mean, you have a project manager that has experience, so the project manager should be able to answer a lot of these questions. Thank you.
okay. So I'm just going to make a couple final comments, and then we can move on. So my questions are really very simple. It's either we get MSBA funding or we don't get MSBA funding. So with regard to the 6 months, my thought as chair would be if we don't get the MSBA funding and we know in December that we need to immediately, and I would put this out, I would ask Mr. Milton to put this out to the school committee chair and to the school building committee chair, is that they need to know where we're going to go from there. We're going to stay on the same path or we're not. Because so I don't think we'll need 6 months of that. The second thing is on the funding. I know that the initial request is 173 million. I've read in the papers, I've heard unofficially in some unofficial meetings that they're reevaluating as to whether or not they want to still go with 2 buildings or just 1 building. So I think, I don't even want to presume. I think that's something they're going to have to come with us. And I think that if MSBA doesn't happen, then I'm hoping that that's something they're working on now, that they can come, because I think that's a question I think we would all agree, that's a question we're going to ask very quickly, like, okay, is the number still 173? Is it less than 173? Is it 2 buildings? Is it, as I say, I've read in the paper, but officially I think we're going to need to know that. And then finally, to me, I've said publicly, I'm willing to let this go to a vote. I do still worry about an operational override, but I'm a little bit comforted by the free cash amount that we received, or we were notified of this week, that maybe we can push that off another year. But it's still, whether it's 170, whatever the number is, it's still the highest amount of debt exclusion we've ever tried to do. So I think being ready to go, April will be here before we know it. I think being ready to go and being able to answer all these questions is in the best interest of all of us. You know, the school committee, school building committee, finance committee, everyone working on this, because this is, as you said, Mr. Zoll, this is an important project for our community. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Ms. Bradley, and that'll be the final comment, then I'm going to move on this. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 comments because of what you just said. First of all, if you'd like to talk about the Finance Committee and what we've learned about, this is, again, I brought this up. Please
You want to
do
just wait till we jump to
I
item
will
6?
happily resign as being chair of the Finance Committee to give the appropriate reports. That's one thing. Second of all, are we about to get school building committee updates from yourself, from our representative, or from Sean O'Rourke? Because it seems to me, after watching multiple school building committee meetings at this point, that we are not getting updates that are actual real time. And so, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to take that on, God bless you. I appreciate that. But I would like for us to all be on the same page, and I would like for all of us to actually know what's happening with the school building committee without having to watch an additional 4 hours of meetings on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Thank you. Those are my 2 questions.
To me?
Yes, Mr. Chair, for
I'm
you.
not asking you-
One, do
I'm
you
not
want to
asking-
give
I'm
the
not asking you to
Finance
resign in
Committee
front of you.
report? And do you want to be the in
No, I
charge
do
of
not.
that?
I do not.
And 2,
Well, can I
and
answer?
2
Can I answer what you just asked me? So
well,
what I
but
referred to is,
why are you talking about a surplus that hasn't even been mentioned by the Finance Committee?
I don't know what you're referring to.
You, Mr. Chair, you just did. You responded to the fact that we are about to get more free cash.
I did.
Yep, and that's something that the Finance Chair would normally do.
You can do that, but it's public information. I just mentioned it.
I
didn't
know it's public
dive into it.
information, Mr. Chair. The point is the respect to the people that have the positions.
Okay, Ms. Bradley, well, let's move on then to item 6, the select board.
Nope,
Finance
let's move on
Committee.
to the next thing, which is how am I supposed to get my school building committee reports? Is that through our appointment? Is that through you? Or is that through Mr. Milano?
I'd say it could be all 3. This is a
No, no.
joint
If
effort
it's
on
gonna
behalf
be
of all
public
of us.
notice, then I want to know how we get our information from the school building committee.
When the school building committee wants to come before us, they can come before us. You just heard
Don't
what
we
I
have a
said. I
liaison?
think I was pretty detailed, Miss Bradley. I'm not going to speak any more about this. I think I was pretty
No,
detailed in what I
you
said
don't
I
get to do
thought.
that, Mr. Chair. You get to tell me how I learn about what's happening with the school building committee. Is that through our representative, or is that through you, or is that through Mr. Milano? Because if it's through Mr. Milano, it's not public information.
Okay,
Can I
moving on,
say one last thing?
moving on.
So you're not
We're done.
answering.
Okay.
I'm not,
Gotcha.
we're all done
You're not
with this.
answering.
We're all done. So moving on to item number 5, discussion approval, special town meeting dates for February town meeting. Mr. Milano, I'll go to you first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as we've been thinking about when a special town meeting might take place, we're not looking at December at this point. I had started to pull together some potential dates in the spring as we are talking about a school project that might potentially come forward. Whether MSBA or not, there would be a potential town meeting vote required as part of that process. If the town is accepted into the MSBA process, we would have to appropriate money to our feasibility study and schematic design. And to be ready for that, it would be helpful to have a town meeting on the calendar. I drafted a timeline that we typically do for these town meetings. I think, it's kind of a hard thing because we don't have this board, we don't have a full article quite yet. So we don't necessarily need to lock in a date, but I think if the board would like to give clarity to folks as to when town meeting might take up these school-related questions, it might be good to have a date penciled in. February 10th would be before February vacation. That's why we picked it. The challenge with these dates in this time of year is that the burden it puts on the warrant committee and staff to prepare the warrant and get it out. So a February town meeting would mean that the warrant would have to be finished by mid-January, January 15th timeframe, which means the warrant committee would have to have completed its deliberations, prepared comments. So if there's a real desire to have this earlier, I think February 10th would be the earliest that we should think about scheduling it. If there's flexibility to push that back, any wiggle room in moving the date back by a couple of weeks now gives the warrant committee and staff a little bit more time in the new year to pull together the warrant. So I don't have a firm recommendation at this time. I think February 10th, or I would certainly skip the week of February vacation, and then February 24th would be the Monday after February vacation. So I think those are 2 possible dates the board could consider. And then we would start soliciting warrant articles for that if it was selected.
So you're saying pushing back, you mean pushing forward? When you say pushing back, you mean back into January, or you mean pushing forward in later February?
Later, a later
Okay.
date, sorry.
'Cause I'm like,
I-
pushing back is going to make
so-
it even worse. So
Yeah.
you're talking about potentially pushing forward, but February 10th is your optimal date to want to.
I think that would be the earliest that is feasible. And if there's a desire to have a meeting, February 10th, I think, is the earliest it should take place. And more flexibility is afforded the later it gets. And by the flip side is the warrant committee will be doing its annual town meeting work in March and late February. So I think that kind of 4-week window between early February to early March is probably the best bet at this point. So I think February 24th would be a good one, or the first weekend in March if this board's inclined to set a date and give clarity to folks as to when a special town meeting might take place.
Do you want to placehold both the 10th and the 24th?
We can do that. It's just that
Because
when,
auditorium, I'm just talking about the logistics of holding it and having it. Just
Yep. So we have the space reserved for the week of the 10th already. We didn't lock down any later dates quite yet. Based on this discussion, we can go do that. But if there's a commitment to have a special town meeting, then we can lock down those 2 dates and then have the date voted by the board at the next meeting.
I don't want to comment first. Let me just go Mr. Zoll first. You've had your hand up.
I feel like I get a cheat code by putting my hand up here and being able to speak first, so I'll
I
be
see it. It's
call
like
somebody else if they've got their hand up, Mr. Chair. Just 2 quick comments on this. So in August, we were debating around the school, and I feel like now it's the end of October and we're starting to talk about a town meeting. To me, this seems like an error of our own making, in that we really should have been planning much further in advance for a town meeting, knowing that the school building committee was going to be running out of funding, that we were going to be having these issues. In addition, we learned in August about the home rule petition concept, which could save Milton seniors money, significant money on their taxes if they are in financial distress. And at the time, I asked Mr. Milano, what's the best time to start on that? And the answer was pretty much as soon as possible, because it has to go to legislature and it can take a long time. So I would urge us to do everything that we can do to have this meeting as soon as possible. And I just want to clarify for my second comment, Mr. Milano, you probably have this, but in terms of this special, or in terms of this being a special town meeting and not our annual, in addition to the school building committee, I'm assuming the home rule petition, what are the other articles that you feel like we're going to need to push through in February, but that can't wait for the regular town meeting? Thank you.
I think those are the two main ones that we have on our radar at this time. This is the time of year where folks start to talk about articles that would normally be lined up for an annual. I think if there's a ability to pull some stuff off an annual town meeting and get it done in a special, I think that'd be great. But at this time, the two main ones would be a warrant article related to the school project and that warrant article for the home rule petition that you just mentioned.
You don't want to open up another couple of cans, do you, Mr. Zoll? Is that what you're trying to do here? No.
Not at all, Mr. Chair.
All
I just
right,
wanted to
okay.
make sure that I knew
I
how
got
many
it, I
cans
got
were
it.
in the pantry and what size they were.
got
But specifically, I think for the home rule petition, we had asked for an article to be drafted, so that should be pretty straightforward and ready to go, I would think. So it's really just the school article that will be more complicated. Is that right, Mr. Milano?
Mr. Milano's nodding his head in the affirmative. I know you can't see him. Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
I was going to ask about the school. It's on the warrant. They've already presented, right, to the warrant committee. They had two different articles they wanted, the school building committee, one for the full funding amount and one for the design.
Correct. Yes, the school building committee voted to recommend two articles to the select board. The first being the full project, the other one being the design. I think that design was with the idea of it being a December town meeting and having that money to use to work on the spring, so that might change potentially slightly. And then the question for this board would be, what is going to go and when, in terms of what will go on the warrant at that time. And then that would be, again, the other curveball would be MSBA or not, might change that too.
And a quick follow-up. It might be for you too. How long before the spring election do we have to approve the debt exclusion? Is there a deadline?
Oh, sorry, that was the other factor for this.
Yeah.
So if
Okay.
if the town meeting were to take up the school project, and the inclination were to have the ballot question itself be on the annual town election rather than a special election, there's a 90-day time limit. So the town meeting has to be within 90 days of the election. So to have a town meeting in January that is a potential vote on the full project, we would then have to have a special town election rather than waiting to the annual town election. Right.
Right, but
So,
it would be after.
Yeah, at this point, and looking at February and beyond, it could go on the annual town election warrant and stay within the 90-day rule that's required.
And I want to thank you for keeping your eye on that, because we've talked about this repeatedly. Okay, we good? Okay, so do we want to want to vote on placeholder? I mean,
Why don't I inquire about availability for the week of the 24th for both the space as well as the moderator, the town clerk, and then
Okay.
at the next meeting we can confirm the meeting date. And that we'll just let folks know if they have warrant articles in mind. Now's the time to start submitting them to our office.
There's your cans of worms, Mr. Zoll. Okay.
Yes,
Mr. Zoll,
yes,
go
they
ahead.
are, Mr. Chair. I'm
Go
sorry
ahead.
that can't be avoided.
Go ahead, that's all right.
Mr. Milano, can I just ask real quick, we're holding both of those Mondays that you suggested already? Is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to follow up. I have a follow-up question, I believe, before you even asked your question. As soon as we have those, if you could just circulate it to the
Sure.
board that we've confirmed
Yeah,
those
will do.
dates. Is that all right with everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Item number 6, discussion update, Selects Board Finance Committee report. Ms. Bradley.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'll defer to you.
I wasn't at that meeting, so it's your committee, Ms. Bradley.
It is, Mr. Chair, and so there are some things that we were made aware of that it seems that you would like to share, so I'm going to let you do that.
Ms. Milano, were you at that meeting?
I was, Mr. Chair.
Good. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so the main news that was that the Department of Revenue certified the town's free cash on October 11th at $4,563,000, which is greater than the past couple of years, and we've been trending higher on free cash, so that's the highest amount that we can remember. Obviously, gives some additional tools to the town as we're developing the budget moving forward. So that's the main news item out of the Finance Committee from its prior meeting.
And that we have a joint meeting coming up this week with this school committee, right?
Oh, yes, the School Committee Finance Subcommittee and the Select Board Finance Committee are meeting on Friday morning for an initial conversation. And we'll report back at a future meeting.
Thank you. Item number, we're going to defer item 9. Item number 7 is discussion and approval sale of a water bond to the MWRA Authority in the amount of $2,799,800. Mr. Milano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we, as an MWRA member, have access to zero-interest loans from the MWRA that are paid back over a 10-year time period. Each year at town meeting, there's an annual warrant article to approve appropriations in order to take advantage of this program. And so what will typically happen is we'll get these approvals, and then we'll line up water main projects, get the projects moving, and then access the funding from the MWRA. At this point, we're asking for $2.79 million in funding from the MWRA. These would be, the money would be issued to the town this year. First payments would begin next year. We would pay that back, just the principal over 10 years with 0% owed on that. The projects that they're financing are, one project is completed. It was a water main replacement project on several streets last year. And then the second element of that funding is for water main projects that are going to take place later this month and next month on Lantern, Thompson, Pond, and Windsor streets. So general water main replacements and updates. Total cost of the MWRA assistance is $2.79 million.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the sale of a water bond to the Mass Water Resource Authority in the amount of $2,799,800 in the form of the vote prepared by bond counsel.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Questions, comments?
I just-
Go ahead, Mr. Cohen.
Quick one, those are projects that are done. Or
The,
just that one's completely done and one's just about
it's just starting it.
done.
Yeah.
Okay,
Starting,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There's an annual, we try to do this annually, or
Correct,
to obtain the benefit of this grant as often as possible, as often as physically
Yep,
possible.
yep.
So this will be a roll call vote. Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes,
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
Myself, yes, that's unanimous. Okay. Item number 10, item number 8 is discussion approval conservation restriction for 1268 Canton Avenue to be held by the trustees of the reservation. Mr. Milano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are approached by the trustees of the reservations with a request to approve a conservation restriction as required by Mass General Law. This conservation restriction will go over most of the property located at 1268 Canton Ave, which, if you're looking at the Eustis Estate, is to the left of the Eustis Estate and behind. This is mainly due to the trustees had participated in Historic New England's purchase of the property. The conservation restriction will limit any new construction or will prevent any major construction or subdivision of this property, and it'll be available for passive recreation. That's kind of the big picture overview. I know a representative from the trustees is on the meeting if there are any more detailed questions from the board.
Ms. Ms. Musto?
Thank you. Just wondering, Mr. Milano, if you had reached out to the neighbors?
We
The-
sent
the
out a note.
specific neighbor, yeah.
Yep. So,
Okay, and you didn't get any other,
nope.
okay.
Yeah, this has been on for a while.
Okay. Happy
Okay,
to
so
do
I have a
that.
motion. You want to do the motion?
Sure.
Go ahead, Ms. Musto.
I'll make a motion to approve the conservation restriction for 1268 Canton Ave, the Eustace Estate, to be held by the trustees of reservations.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Cohen. This will be, again, be a roll call vote. Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Item 9 is deferred. Item number 10, discussion approve of meeting minutes September 10th of 2024 and September 24th of 2024. I'm getting you there, Mr. Zoll. We good? We got a minute? Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion? Please, do I have a motion?
Okay,
Someone-
okay.
It's not in front of me, but yes, Mr. Chair, you have a motion.
Move to approve the amended meeting minutes for September 10th, September 24th, 2024.
Second?
Official one.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Cohen. Roll call vote. Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Was that me? Yes.
Yes, that's you, yes. Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
And myself, yes, that's unanimous. Okay. Town Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few things. Early voting is underway. You can vote now in person at Town Hall. Business hours this week and next week, and they'll also be available on Saturday from 10 to 5. Mail-in ballots should be out as well, so please return those or join us in person on November 5th. The Health Department is hosting a forum on a discussion around using the opioid settlement funds and how folks in town would like to see those monies used. That's being held on October 30th at 5:30 here on the Council on Aging. We released the request for expressions of interest for the East Milton Fire Station today. Sent out a notice from the town website. We'll be reaching out to groups around town as well just to make them aware of it. Those expressions of interest are due back on December 13th. We've had a few folks already reach out before releasing it, which is good. So again, we're seeking ideas and concepts for the site that would inform a formal procurement process in the future. The Halloween stroll that the Chamber hosts annually is this Saturday, October 26th. It's 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. over in East Milton at Manning Park on the deck. Nice event to bring the kids and get the Halloween candy started early. And lastly, there are a number of paving projects that will be commencing tomorrow. A number of streets have been milled
Well, you can
over
see,
the past week.
including the one driving in here.
So Governor Belcher, Randolph, Briarfield, Hawthorne, Virginia, Walnut and Clap here near Town Hall and the Council on Aging. The Blue Hills, Brush Hill Road, near Fuller Village, a portion of that was milled and will be repaved. And we've already completed some along Brook, Reedsdale, and Central. So appreciate DPW Engineering getting these projects out and done. Those will probably take the next few days. So if you're in those areas, sorry for the disturbance over the past week, but you should have a nice paved road, hopefully by the end of this week, and maybe early next week. And Mr. Chair, those are my updates. Thank you.
Thank you. No report for the chair's report. I'm going to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just one quick thing. The fire station had an
gonna do
open
that.
house. Yep, you can do it.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, go ahead.
No, they had an open house this past weekend on Saturday. It was very well attended, a very nice event, and it was great to see a lot of people there. Want to add to that?
It was great that it's open. It's
Yes.
great that, I still can't believe it's done, but I
Yeah.
said to Chair Wass, I'm like, can you believe, I said when the first community meeting was here, the first public meeting, I'm like, can you believe this is done? Because it's just so hard to get things done, but real credit to everyone who worked, the neighbors, everyone in town that worked on it, the architects, and of course, the new home for the firefighters, which is so well deserved. Ms. Bradley, I see your hand up, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I wanted to commend our DPW committee on paving near my house. I live by Brook and Central and Reedsdale, all where that process, and so I appreciate that. But I really raised my hand, Mr. Chair, to salute one of my colleagues' children, because I think that I think that our best thing is what our kids do, right? Because if our kids are amazing, then we did a really good job. So I want to commend Ms. Musto on her son's passage of the bar this last week. As I know, it's a huge feat, and I'm in the midst of still learning, and so I just want to give a big shout out to Michael Musto for passing the bar, and for Mr. and Mrs. Musto for supporting him the entire time, because it does take a village, and mom and dad do a lot to make that happen. So congratulations to you guys and your family.
Thank you. That was very nice. That was
Congrats.
really very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you. It is hard. He worked hard, and it's a, you know, I will just quickly say, working full time and going at night for 4 years, it's a long haul. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Congratulations. Michael's all smiles. I've seen him multiple times this week. He's all
Run
smiles.
into him around
all
town.
smiles. Okay, public comment. We had no public comment tonight. Future meeting dates, Tuesday, November 12th, and Tuesday, November 26th. That's Thanksgiving week. Or is that the week after
The
Thanksgiving?
week after.
Okay, the week after Thanksgiving.
I think that's the week of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's super late this year.
Oh,
I thought so too. I thought
okay.
Yeah, I think
Good
you're
catch. We will
Yes.
revise.
we'll look at that one. We'll look at that. We may
Okay.
we may bump that out a week if that. I think we'll
Yeah,
be
it is
amenable
the
to everyone.
26th.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanksgiving
Oh, wow.
is
I'm
the
sorry,
Okay.
I didn't hear that. I'm wicked sorry, you guys. I
the
didn't hear
the
that.
26th
Are you
is-
saying that we are going to have the 12th?
No.
Yeah.
We may go. We will have the 12th. We may go out a
And then
week.
maybe not the 26th?
Not the 26th. That's Thanksgiving week.
Correct.
Is that okay?
Wow.
Mr. Milano's still in shock. He's still in shock.
It's a late Thanksgiving this year.
Okay.
We'll work on the schedule and figure out what we need and let everybody know.
Other than the things we've discussed already tonight, any other future agenda items?
No.
Hearing that, it's 7:53. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Cohen. Roll call vote. Ms. Musto,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
myself, and Mr. Zoll. You're
Yes.
the final yes. Have a good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And congrats,
Good night.
Thank you.
Ms. Musto, to your son. That's really great.
Thank you.